Where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. The wind does not simply blow across the northern seas. It carries voices. It whispers through the salt spray and moans in the rigging of lonely fishing boats, telling tales of a presence as vast and deep as the ocean itself. For centuries, the people of the fjords and the windswept coasts have known this presence by a name that echoes the very sound of the waves: Njord. He is not merely a god of the sea, but its soul, the master of the winds that fill the sails, the guardian of the harbors that offer safe return, and the lord of the unimaginable wealth that lies hidden in the abyssal plains. To understand Njord is to understand the ancient Norse world, a world where the line between the mortal and the divine was as thin as a ship's sail, and where survival depended on the favor of powers far greater than oneself. This is the story of that favor, a saga woven from sea foam and storm clouds, of tempests calmed with a whispered prayer and fortunes won from the deep. We begin our journey not on the water, but in the quiet halls of the land, where the echoes of the ocean are a constant, haunting reminder of the power that governs all life and death beyond the shore. The origins of Njord are as mysterious as the deepest trench in the ocean. He belongs to a race of gods known as the Vanir, older and perhaps more deeply connected to the earth and its natural forces than the more famous Aesir, like Odin and Thor. While the Aesir were gods of kingship, war, and cosmic order, the Vanir were deities of fertility, prosperity, and the untamed world. Njord's domain was the coastline itself, the crucial liminal space where land and sea meet. The earliest mentions of him are found in the ancient poetry of the Vikings, the poetic Edda, where he is described as a god whom princes pray to, a testament to his direct influence on the success and failure of maritime ventures. Archaeological evidence, though scarce, hints at his worship. Small amulets carved from whalebone depicting a figure with a curled beard, perhaps symbolizing waves, and place names along the Scandinavian coast that still bear his name, silent witnesses to forgotten shrines. Scholars interpret Njord as a symbol of more than just nautical skill. He represents safe passage, both literal and economic. His favor meant fair winds, a bountiful catch, and the safe return of traders laden with amber, furs, and silver. He was the divine embodiment of the community's hope and anxiety, a reminder that their survival was inextricably linked to the mercy of a capricious and powerful element. To earn Njord's favor, the Norse people developed specific rituals and observances, a sacred dialogue between humanity and the deep. Before a longship's keel ever touched the water, chieftains and fishermen would gather at the water's edge, at small, hidden shrines marked by stacked stones or ancient carvings. The air would be thick with the smell of salt and burning pine, as offerings were cast into the tide or placed upon a stone altar. These were not grand sacrifices of gold, but practical, heartfelt gifts. The first fish of the season, smoked and salted, a precious piece of amber that had washed ashore, or a beautifully carved model of the very ship that was about to embark. The chants were low and rhythmic, matching the pulse of the waves, prayers for a good wind and a sea that spares. There were also warnings and superstitions. Whistling on a ship was forbidden, for it was said to whistle up a storm, challenging Njord's authority over the winds. To harm a seal or certain seabirds was considered a dire offense, as they were often seen as his messengers or even his earthly forms. An encounter with Njord was rarely a direct, visual one. It was felt in the sudden shift of the wind, the unexpected abundance of herring in the nets, or the miraculous guidance through a pea-soup fog that should have meant disaster on the rocks. One of the most poignant and tragic myths surrounding Njord is that of his marriage to the giantess Skadi. This story, born from a conflict between the gods and the giants, reveals the fundamental duality of the Norse world and the heartache that can come from irreconcilable differences. The marriage was one of settlement, not love. Skadi, a huntress from the high, snow-covered mountains, came to Asgard seeking vengeance for her slain father. The gods, seeking to appease her, offered her a husband from among their number, but with a catch. She must choose her bride based solely on looking at their feet. Believing the most beautiful feet must belong to the handsome Balder, she made her choice. To her dismay, the feet belonged to Njord, the god of the seashore. The union was doomed from the start. They agreed to split their time between his home, Noatun, which means ship haven, and her mountain hall, Thrymheim. For 9 nights they lived by the sea. Skadi could not sleep. The crying of the gulls and the constant crashing of the waves were a torment to her. The screeching of the birds seemed ghastly to me. Awakened from the sea, she lamented. Every morning the mew gives me no peace. The second half of their agreement proved no better. For the next 9 nights, they resided in Skadi's mountain home. Here, the tables were turned. Now it was Njord who found himself in agony. The silence of the snow-covered peaks was deafening, broken only by the howl of the wind, a dry, cold wind, so different from the moist, salt-laden breezes of his home. The barking of foxes and the distant howls of wolves were a poor substitute for the rhythmic sound of the tide. I could not sleep in the mountains, he confessed. It was too loud for me. The wolves howling seemed to me instead of the birds singing. The metaphor was complete. The wolf of the mountain versus the seagull of the coast. Their love, if it ever existed, could not bridge this fundamental chasm of nature. They separated amicably, a rare occurrence in mythology. Skadi returned to her beloved mountains and her skis, becoming a goddess of the hunt and the winter wilderness, while Njord returned to the gentle lapping of waves against the pilings of his hall. This myth symbolizes more than a failed marriage. It is a story about the essence of home and the unchangeable nature of the soul. We are, it says, shaped by our native element, and to be taken from it is a kind of spiritual death. Beyond his ill-fated marriage, Njord's primary role was as the benevolent provider, the god who could be petitioned for prosperity. His connection to wealth was not that of a dragon hoarding gold, but of the fertile, life-giving abundance of the sea and the successful trade routes it enabled. His hall, Noatun, was described as a peaceful place, a sanctuary for ships located by the shore, a haven from the open ocean's fury. It was said that he could calm both sea and fire with his power, a crucial ability for a seafaring culture whose ships and homes were built of highly flammable wood. Prayers to Njord were not just for sailors, but for merchants, craftsmen, and all those whose livelihoods were tied to the economic currents that flowed along the coastlines. A successful trading voyage to distant lands like Britain or the Byzantine Empire could elevate an entire community from poverty to wealth, and such ventures were undertaken under Njord's watchful gaze. He was the unseen partner in every commercial enterprise, the divine force that filled the sails with favorable winds and guided the merchants to safe harbors and profitable markets. His wealth was the wealth of connection, of safe passage and successful exchange, making him one of the most practically worshipped gods in the Norse pantheon. However, the favor of the gods is never guaranteed, and the relationship between Njord and humanity was also defined by moments of stark, terrifying conflict. The sea that gives sustenance can also take it away in an instant. When storms arose without warning, swallowing ships whole, it was often interpreted as Njord's wrath. Perhaps a ritual had been neglected. Perhaps an offering was deemed insufficient or a taboo had been broken. The mythology is filled with lesser spirits and entities that acted as extensions of his will or as independent threats within his domain. Imagine a lone fishing boat, venturing too far from shore as a thick fog rolls in. The familiar coastline vanishes, and the world shrinks to a sphere of gray mist. Then, from the silence, comes a sound, a melodic, haunting song that seems to come from all directions at once. It is not Njord himself, but one of the many sea spirits, a halfru or margiger, drawn from later Scandinavian folklore that evolved from these ancient beliefs. The sailors, hearts pounding, would know the danger. To follow the song was to be lured onto hidden rocks or into a whirlpool. This was the other side of Njord's coin, the unpredictable and deadly nature of the sea, a realm where benevolent guidance could turn to malevolent trickery in the blink of an eye. The legacy of Njord did not vanish with the coming of Christianity to Scandinavia. Like the sea itself, it shifted, adapted, and found new channels through which to flow. His image and attributes were absorbed into the figure of St. Nicholas in some coastal regions, a saint who, notably, was the patron of sailors and merchants. The old prayers for safe voyage were redirected, but the underlying human need remained the same. In the 19th century, during the Romantic nationalist movement, there was a great resurgence of interest in Norse mythology. Poets, painters, and composers looked to figures like Njord to forge a distinct cultural identity. He appeared in epic poems, his tragic marriage to Skadi symbolizing the clash between different aspects of the Scandinavian landscape, the coast and the inland. In modern times, his presence is unmistakable in the world of fantasy literature and role-playing games, where the archetype of the sea god or the ocean deity is a common trope. He is the spiritual ancestor of characters who command the waves and the winds, a testament to the enduring power of his myth. Contemporary pagan movements have also revived his worship, offering prayers to him on shores that have heard his name for millennia, proving that the old gods never truly die. They only wait for the tide to turn. And so, the story of Njord, god of the sea, the wind and prosperous shores, comes to a close, but his presence remains. It is in the sigh of the wind as it fills a sail, in the gentle hush of waves retreating over smooth stones on a beach, and in the profound silence of a fog-bound coast. He is a reminder of a time when the world was alive with divine presence, when every natural force had a name and a will. His myth teaches us about the essential dualities of existence, the giving and taking nature of the world, the irreconcilable differences that can exist even in love, and the deep, unshakable connection between a people and their environment. As you look out upon any vast body of water, remember the ancient Lord who was believed to rule it. Remember the prayers whispered into the salt air, the offerings cast into the deep, and the hope for a safe harbor that has guided humanity for countless generations. The age of belief may have changed, but the sea, and the mysteries it holds, endures forever. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.